Right now, somewhere in your house, there's probably a small, glowing rectangle within arm's reach, ready to light up the second you're bored or anxious or just can't sleep. Modern night is basically solved. You flip a switch, the dark disappears, and you go about your evening like the sun never really left. For almost the entirety of human existence, that was not an option. When the sun went down, roughly half of every single day, the world went completely, genuinely black, and something out there started hunting. So here's the question worth sitting with for a second. What did ancient humans actually do with that darkness? Did they just lie there, terrified, waiting for morning like it was some kind of nightly hostage situation? Or was something else going on? Something a lot stranger and honestly a lot more impressive than we usually give our ancestors credit for. Let's start with why night was such a serious problem in the first place. Because modern darkness and ancient darkness are not the same thing at all. You've experienced dim. You have not experienced the kind of darkness where you hold your hand an inch from your face and see absolutely nothing. And in that darkness, for most of prehistory, the odds flipped completely against you. Most of the big, dangerous predators of the ancient world, lions, hyenas, leopards, were most active at dusk, dawn, and through the night. During the day, you were the one doing the hunting. The second the sun dropped, you became something with much better night vision might consider a reasonably good meal. So the very first strategy was almost embarrassingly simple. Get somewhere defensible. Caves weren't popular because early humans loved dark, damp rooms with zero natural light. Caves were popular because they only have one entrance. You put your back to solid rock and you know with total certainty which direction any danger has to come from. It's basically the original security system, and it worked because it removed almost all of the uncertainty that makes darkness so dangerous in the first place. Groups slept clustered together in these spaces, close enough to share body heat, close enough to hear each other breathing, close enough that if something did approach, somebody would notice immediately. It wasn't cozy in any modern sense of the word, but there was real safety built into simply not being alone. Then, somewhere around 400,000 years ago, everything changed. Fire. And I don't think we talk enough about how genuinely strange it is that a species figured out portable, controllable heat and light before it figured out almost anything else. Fire did the obvious things. It kept you warm, it let you cook food, which dramatically improved how much nutrition your body could actually pull out of what you ate. But the thing fire did that mattered most at night was create a boundary, a circle of light between you and everything else. And most large predators simply will not cross into it, not because fire physically stops them, but because their entire hunting strategy is built around darkness, and firelight is a disruption their instincts don't know how to process. Here's the part that almost never gets talked about, though. Fire didn't just protect ancient humans from getting eaten, it appears to have fundamentally changed what humans actually are as a species.
Think about what a fire circle at night actually allows. You can't exactly get productive by ancient standards. You're not building anything, you're not hunting anything. You're just sitting there, present, looking at the people around you with nothing else competing for your attention. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer societies, groups like the Juhawansi of the Kalahari or the Hadza in Tanzania, have found something remarkable about how conversation shifts once the sun goes down. During daylight hours, talk is almost entirely practical. Coordination, logistics, who's doing what, where the food is. But at night, around the fire, the entire tone changes. The overwhelming majority of nighttime conversation in these communities is storytelling. Long, layered, emotionally rich stories about ancestors, about how the world came to be, about what it means to be someone worth trusting. That's not a small detail. That split, practical talk during the day, storytelling at night, appears to be an ancient and remarkably consistent pattern. And think about what storytelling actually does. It's how values move between generations without anyone writing anything down. It's how a group remembers who they are. Every night, for hundreds of thousands of years, humans sat by fire and narrated the world to each other. Which is, if you think about it, exactly what we're still doing with every movie, every show, every video you scroll through at night on that glowing rectangle. The campfire was the very first screen. Now, let's talk about sleep itself, because this is where things get genuinely strange, and it might change how you feel the next time you wake up at 3 in the morning for no obvious reason. Most of us assume the correct, healthy way to sleep is one unbroken block, 8 hours straight through. If you wake in the middle of the night and can't immediately fall back asleep, the instinct is to assume something's wrong. Here's the thing. That assumption is almost certainly historically incorrect. A historian named Roger Ekerch spent years combing through diaries, medical texts, court records, and literature going back centuries, and found something remarkably consistent. For most of human history, people didn't sleep in one continuous block. They slept in 2 segments. You'd go to bed a couple of hours after dark, sleep for 3 or 4 hours, then wake up naturally, calmly, not in distress, and stay awake for an hour or so before drifting back to sleep until morning. This wasn't insomnia. It had a name. First sleep and second sleep. And references to it show up constantly across history, in Homer, in Roman writing, throughout medieval literature, almost as casually as we'd mention lunch.
And that waking window in the middle of the night wasn't wasted time. People prayed. Many religious traditions considered the deep, quiet hours between midnight and dawn to be the most sacred time to connect with something larger than themselves. People thought about their dreams, which were taken far more seriously as meaningful events than most of us treat them today. Some people had sex, since the body was warm and relaxed, and there was, quite literally, nowhere else to be. Others tended the fire, checked on animals, nursed infants, or simply lay there thinking. It wasn't a malfunction. It was just what the night naturally did, in 2 distinct phases, the way it always had. This pattern seems to have largely disappeared once artificial lighting let people push bedtime later and later, which compressed sleep into one longer block and made that ancient 3 a.m. waking window feel, for the first time, like something had gone wrong. Let's go back even further, though, because the closer you look at how ancient humans handled sleep specifically, the more sophisticated it gets. Long before anyone had beds, archaeological evidence from a site called Border Cave in South Africa suggests that as far back as 200,000 years ago, humans were constructing deliberate sleeping platforms. Not furniture exactly, but carefully layered bedding made from selected grasses and leaves. And beneath those layers, researchers found something that stops you in your tracks. Ash. Not accidental residue from a nearby fire, but ash that had been deliberately spread underneath the sleeping area. Why? Because ash repels insects, the fleas and ticks and mites that would otherwise bite you while you slept and potentially spread disease. Someone 200,000 years ago got bitten, noticed the ash from the fire seemed to help, tested that idea, confirmed it worked, and passed the knowledge on to everyone else. That's not superstition. That's the scientific method, quietly running in a prehistoric brain, solving the specific problem of sleeping through the night without getting eaten alive by bugs. Night wasn't only about survival, though. For nearly every ancient culture on record, night was also the most spiritually significant part of the entire day. And honestly, that makes intuitive sense. The sun, the thing that made the world visible and warm, disappeared every single evening. In the cosmology of countless ancient peoples, it didn't just set, it descended into an underworld and had to fight its way back. Every sunrise was treated as a genuine victory. Every night was, in some sense, a vigil.
The ancient Maya built entire calendar systems and even oriented their cities around the movement of celestial bodies that were only visible after dark. Their observatory at Chichen Itza was constructed to track Venus with extraordinary precision, because Venus, visible only at dawn and dusk, was tied directly to decisions about warfare. The night sky wasn't decoration to them. It was functioning as a political and military intelligence system. In ancient Mesopotamia, a specialized class of priests spent their nights reading the sky for omens, tracking comets, eclipses, and planetary movement to determine when to go to war, when to plant crops, when to make treaties. The specific methodology behind that reasoning doesn't hold up by modern scientific standards, but the underlying instinct absolutely does. It was a genuine, serious attempt to find pattern in the natural world and use it to make better decisions, which is more or less the entire foundation of science, just aimed in a direction we now know was wrong. And then there's the Polynesian navigators, who might be the single most impressive example of what night could actually be used for. These are people who crossed the largest ocean on the planet in open wooden canoes, no compass, no instruments of any kind, and somehow found tiny islands scattered across an expanse of water larger than every landmass on Earth combined. They did this primarily at night, because night is when the information was actually available. They memorized the rising and setting points of hundreds of individual stars across different seasons and latitudes. They lay in the hull of the canoe and felt ocean swells directly through their bodies, because different swell patterns traveling from different directions meant different distant land masses. The night sky wasn't just pretty to them, it was a fully functioning navigation system, arguably more sophisticated in certain respects than anything humans carried before satellites existed.
So when you zoom out and look at all of this together, the picture that emerges is almost the exact opposite of what most people assume about ancient nighttime. It wasn't empty time, and it definitely wasn't just fear and waiting. Night was when humans told each other the stories that eventually became culture itself. It was when they slept in two natural phases and woke in the middle to think or pray, or simply exist quietly in the dark. It was when priests scanned the sky for meaning, and navigators crossed oceans using nothing but starlight and the memory of waves. Night had its own rules, its own skills, its own kind of intelligence, built and refined over hundreds of thousands of years. We traded almost all of that away for electric light. And to be completely fair, that trade was absolutely worth it. Nobody's arguing you should give up your bedroom lamp to go read swell patterns in a canoe. But there's something worth noticing in how completely we flattened the difference between day and night. How little most of us now think about the sky above our heads, or the natural rhythms of our own bodies when we actually let them run their course. So the next time you wake up at 3 in the morning, clear-headed for no obvious reason, thoughts moving quietly through your mind, don't reach immediately for your phone, and don't assume something's broken. Just lie there in the dark for a minute. That feeling isn't a malfunction. It's ancient. You're not malfunctioning. You're remembering something your body was never actually supposed to forget.